Man, with WrestleMania coming up in just tomorrow, actually, it's WrestleMania 34. I just thought, I don't get into wrestling at all anymore, really. I might flip through it and watch a few minutes and laugh my ass off at some of this shit. But I thought, hey, maybe this time, instead of video game stuff, I've done some retro stuff in the past. Maybe we're going to take a look at 7 of my top favorite pro wrestlers of all time. Yo, what's going on? Cliff Jumper 1984, Red Rock's your favorite Autobot. And like I said, the only reason I'm picking 7 is because when I'm trying to think further than 7, everyone's more generic, or it's so hard to really come up with the bottom 3. And most of these aren't really going to be in any order either. But before that, I want to talk about some of the stuff. I remember watching pro wrestling when I was younger. I was born in '82, so I got to see, some of the later years of the golden, years of the WWF. I would eventually get a TV in my room and remember Saturday night watching the main events on Saturday night. Like, it was like 8 o'clock, I think, on Channel 5 or Channel 8 where I lived. And I just remember seeing like Hogan and Warrior and Macho Man and stuff like that. And that's when I first really got my taste, would be, like 1990. I watched it for a few years, and, by the time I got to middle school, I met some friends who enjoyed watching wrestling too. My buddy Jason, I bring up a lot in the channel. He lived across the street from me, and like for the first half hour of Raw or WCW, like we would be on the phone like for the first half hour, and like, wow, I don't do that anymore. But just like, oh my God, you see that? Oh, what do you think's gonna happen and all that shit. And eventually, it led to us backyard wrestling. The shit that we went through, we did it from probably we were like 14 or late 13s to probably even as late as 18 years old. And I know one time we got drunk when we were like 20, and we did it for like a real match the last time, the way we used to do it, and we got so hurt. One of my buddies, D-Rock, who's on this channel, you see him playing guitar every once in a while. He actually broke his wrist and continued wrestling for like like the next half hour, the broken wrist like that. And then coincidentally, I was at my 16th birthday party. Oh man, it's crazy. We used to make these cardboard belts. We used to take like giant boxes, break them apart, and shape them like that. Wrap them in like hockey tape, put a plaque on them, and then wrap them in box tape. That would be pretty cool like that. Oh, my cat's doing something real crazy there, playing with my hat. Hey, Buggy! Get mine. Anyway, so here is my top 7 favorite pro wrestlers. Number 7, Razor Ramon. I don't know what it was. I just liked his promos and the way he wrestled in the ring. He had some great matches with another guy I'm going to bring up later in my list. Number 6, The Ultimate Warrior. Again, his promos were off the fucking wall. Like, even going back watching some of them right now. Sorry. You don't know, like, what the fuck was this dude talking about? You could tell this guy was all jacked up on roids or coke or something. Just like, Raw! So, and it just sucked because he was such a lousy wrestler. He just had like 5 to 8 maneuvers or moves or whatever. And that was it. Match was over, and you're just like, but it was cool when you were younger, watch him dominate, and then when you see him later, like 96, you're like, no, dude, no. The Patriot. And I never got to really see any of his videos from his New Japan work and stuff, and New Japan wrestling and everything like that. I only seen him in WCW and briefly in WWF. And I don't know what it was, because I was into masked wrestlers growing up with, of course, with an NES and stuff, and all the wrestling games, you always had a masked wrestler. I was always the masked wrestler. I don't know, and his moveset just was kind of cool, even though it was kind of basic. I just really enjoyed watching the guy wrestle, even though his tag team partner in some of the early days at WCW was Marcus Bagwell. Yeah, but word. I know there's some guy playing it right now, and the guy who used to be the Patriot's upset about that. I don't know. I don't follow wrestling. I don't know. When I was looking at who I was thinking about bringing up, I don't know why I got onto the wiki, his page or whatever, and I seen that. I was like, damn, that's kind of messed up. Sting. Yeah. And I'm just going to say Sting, I mean early Sting. Colorful Sting, not before Icon, Crow Sting, whatever you want to call it. That just, I don't know, that didn't do anything for me at all. I just like the colorful. He was like very brash, outspoken, and like kind of showed off a little bit, but always playing the babyface role. I just like that style of wrestling he did. He's always yelling and woo, doing his thing. Number 3, Shawn Michaels. Again, it was more, I guess, his ring style is what I really enjoyed about him. He would really put a match over. He would make, a really shitty wrestler have a good match and stuff like that. I enjoyed watching him a lot, and it sucked, like, when I learned later now that how much of an asshole he was back in the day with his backstage politics, the Clique, and his drug abuse and stuff like that. It's really sad. Because he probably could have been even better than what he was. I guess when he quit and had that back injury and came back, supposedly he had all those great matches, which is pretty much when I stopped really getting into wrestling and stuff like that, not watching anymore. Number 2. Oh, yeah, Macho Man. Oh. He was over the top, and he was a very good in-ring wrestler. He wasn't just really good in one area. He was good in almost every area. He would get up on top ropes. He had great speed. He had great power. Wasn't the hugest guy, but he definitely wasn't small by all means. And, of course, the match with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was at WrestleMania 2. It's a fucking classic. He could sell a good match. It's just a shame what happened to him and his last matches and stuff like that. Man, he was a character. His promos too, kind of scenarios where he talked about, like, oh my god, I'm trying to think of a real good one. Then we talked about, like, Sonny and Cher brought that up, and then he was one thing where he's doing coffee creamers, just making them try and disappear in his hands, and they weren't there. Just trying to do stupid stuff like that. I loved it. And number 1 on this list, and I hate to say it, but I didn't know it, is Hulk Hogan. I loved his promos. Being the little kid when I first got wrestling, that was the main guy. And I'm like, who's this guy? This is awesome. And he was always winning all the time. She's just like, yeah. And it was like one of those childhood heroes. I can even remember back in the day, my uncle still lived with my grandmother, or moved back after something, I don't know, and watching that rock and roll wrestling show with Hogan on it. I can remember that shit. And yeah, he was just like everything at the time. And, I don't know why I was sitting here. Yeah. It's one of my doubles actually trying to sell on Craigslist. That's why. He was a hero. He was everything. And he was always just like, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to get you in his promos. You always see him win. And again, it was one of those things where you look back now, how his politics were. He got to make a lot of those decisions. And it kind of sucked. But, I wish everyone else got a chance in wrestling. But would wrestling be anything today if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan? So yeah, that's my list. What do you think? What are your top, 5, 7, or 10 favorite wrestlers, or how many? Doesn't matter. Throw them below. What's your earliest memory of wrestling? Every backyard wrestler yourself. Throw that comment below. Subscribe if you haven't. Slap a like on this bitch. Subscribe, and if you haven't, or what? Hey, until next time, something like that. Yeah, drink one on me.